server. So I want to talk about how I think Enneagram, specifically being in Enneagram 6 is related to cluster A. Probably there's a lot of connections in general between like different PD traits and what's considered PD and Enneagram, especially if you believe in Enneagram like I do. Like Enneagram is very much related to one's core fears and motivations, and I feel like that's very similar to how personality disorders oftentimes are. And I feel like both Enneagram and personality disorders tend to be very much all encompassing. And I do think they're like, I know a lot of times people will think personality disorders is like more objective in a sense than Enneagram. I would say that too much credit is given to how objective personality disorders are, particularly when it comes to diagnosing them, and too little credit is given to Enneagram, how accurate and consistent I feel like they can be. 1666, hello. I feel like for personality disorders, the diagnosis of them can be pretty subjective and oftentimes give people like very inaccurate things. Also, I think perhaps they can be a lot more static or less static. They can be more malleable than I think is said about them. But also, too, I do think people can have a consistent pattern that could be labeled as a personality disorder, but also like when it comes to testing them. I have some art, like, well, if you count what my young family members did for me, but it's over on the other side. That's just like the wall. Put an egg on your head? What the hell? Yeah, so I was saying for personality disorders, I think that they're very similar to the Enneagram in many ways. I feel like. Hello, Doma. Like, and also, too, like, a lot of the stuff regarding Cluster A, I feel like a lot of, like, the suspiciousness, being mistrustful, in, like, skeptical can be very much related to the, like, type 6, because type 6 is very much revolves around, being fear-based, and also, too, cluster A's can be, like, very concerned with, like, loyalty and who's loyal and who's betraying you, and that's also a common thing for Enneagram 6s as well. Also, I heard cluster A can have some type of protective empathy associated with it, which I feel like is also close to Enneagram 6 being characterized as concerns with loyalty and wanting to help the underdog and stuff. What's for dinner? I don't know. I haven't had dinner yet. I I ran out of all my meal drinks, unfortunately, and the pouches. Sometimes I prefer to have those because they're easy. I had some overnight oats that I had bought before in the fridge earlier today. And I was eating some crackers with bitchin' sauce. But yeah, so does anyone here have any interest in either PD traits, specifically like cluster A or Enneagram? I do not have any thoughts on that. And yeah, that's not really what the stream is about. So if you came for that, probably you will be disappointed. I've made vegan crab cakes before. Actually, my cousin and I took a food sensitivity test, and she had came out with sensitivity to those, so I made a vegan version of it for her. You make it with like, I think it's like bay seasoning and hearts of palm. Yes, I am vegan. I don't know much about the Thorpes. But yeah, any interest in Enneagram or PD traits? Why do people become vegan? Well, definitionally, veganism is about um for the animals, in my opinion. I mean, generally it revolves around some kind of animal rights based belief or like harm reduction based belief regarding animals. Because I believe if it's like for health reasons or like environmental reasons, it's probably more like plant based. But I don't know, different people have different ideas. But that's generally, I think, the what makes the most sense. Um, I've I've like looked into that a bit. I mean, I would imagine so because um it seems like there could be more sixes as far as like, cuz we can have a tendency to want to protect those that are weaker. Also, I could see a lot of fours being vegan because they're very sensitive. But also, sixes are supposed to be apparently the most common type. That's what I've heard before. Which also, I think, can be related to cluster A. I feel like cluster A is probably a lot underdiagnosed a lot. And I would imagine if like type 6s become traumatized, I think like a lot of PDs are very much related to trauma, and I feel like based on 6's natural inclination, they probably would a lot of times move towards cluster A in general. Is there a secret type 10 that controls the other 9? I've heard some kind of a joke, or I think it's somewhat of a joke. I'm not sure, like, but also somewhat serious, I think. So, Enneagram is said to be very related to trauma, and it said like pretty much everybody by default is traumatized. So the joke kind of is like everyone starts out as a 10 and then they end up as whatever type their trauma corresponds to. But some other people believe you're kind of born with a certain predisposition for like an Enneagram type. Hi, hey people. But yeah, I used to be more into Enneagram. I mean, I go off and on it. I mean, I'm always into it, but sometimes my focus is more on other things. But any recent self-discoveries? Um, I'm not sure any like huge revelations came from. I've been interested in Enneagram for like quite some time. I haven't been looking into it and talking about it a lot super recently, which is unfortunate because like once I had that terrible experience at McLean, I stopped focusing as much on Enneagram, particularly in my social media. And I think like a lot of the people who like followed me on Twitter were mostly interested in a lot of my Enneagram takes, and I think part of it too is they didn't really know how to respond when I started talking about like all the horrible experiences at the psych ward. But yeah, so I think if I shared it now, I'm not sure how many of them are still focused on that on my account, even though a lot of them still follow me, because that could potentially get more people in the server who are interested in Enneagram. Also, too, because there are certain reasons why I'm a lot more hesitant now to share my server on the YouTube channel. But, yeah. I mean, perhaps I will share it sometime, but yeah. Like, yeah, exactly. Discord. I've shared it on this channel before, but now the link's dead, and like, I'm hesitant to repost it. But I do want to get more people specifically interested in Enneagram on the server, so I think that would kind of help my goals for it. But yeah, wait. Out of curiosity, if anyone doesn't mind saying, how did you come across this live stream? Because I shared it on my server, and then I have some public subs, but I don't recognize anyone, or don't really recognize anyone who's been in my chat before. Yikes. Well, I mean, if it's that bad, you can keep scrolling. Just floating around. Do people like watch Enneagram related content, or maybe like content related to MBTI or something? No, I do not have kids. Okay, let me see how many interested in Enneagram. Okay, I started a poll. Oh, my voice is cute. Thanks. Oh yeah, I watch probably a variety of things too. Oh wow, this is interesting. How many vote? Okay, 3 votes. Who's people have never heard of it so far. So hard to make it go down on my iPhone. Nice house. Thanks. Okay, another vote. Never heard of Enneagram. Yeah, I'd be curious what makes my video get suggested. My channel's too, like, very small still at the moment. But I had to cross a certain threshold to go live on the YouTube app. So you can go live on YouTube, but if you use the iPhone app, you have to cross a certain threshold of subscribers. Oh, thank you. They no longer sell Lush sea salt spray, but so I've tried a new sea salt spray. They just stopped selling it. I don't know why. Okay, so at least one person is interested in Enneagram. Huh? Spray for what? Do you spray it? Do I spray it in my mouth? No, it's for your hair. Sea salt spray? Okay, how do I pin it now? I just saw an option to pin it 2 seconds ago. God damn it. Yeah, I don't know how people are finding it. But yeah, if you have any thoughts too regarding sixes, sixes are supposed to be the most common type as well. Does anyone find that so sixes tend to be the most fear based, and yeah, they can also at times be very, very skeptical and like mistrustful. And it's said too that fear is one of the most common motivators too. So that would line up with it. So even if you don't like know about Enneagram, I guess that might make sense to you. And it's worth looking into Enneagram sixes to see, because again, that is supposed to be the most common type. So you could look into it and see if there's any truth to it. Really, the three most common types are meant to be threes, sixes, and nines. Um, and nine is their main fear is meant to be like fear of conflict, and kind of they want everybody to get along. Threes, their main fears I would say around like incompetence and like insignificant, and they want to look like competent, capable, and important. That's like a rough description of them. I haven't been as invested into Enneagram as much lately, although sometimes I'll like go into different Enneagram communities, or it's like in the back of my mind. But yeah, also if those sound like the most common motivations for people, that would make sense because they are the main types. But part of my goal is wanting to make a community that's very friendly for cluster A and accepting of cluster A, because I feel like there's a lot more spaces for cluster B than there is for cluster A. And I have found some spaces that are for cluster A as well, but they're definitely more rare and not as many people have heard about them. Wait, which part sounds made up to you? I mean, cluster A, Enneagram. I mean, arguably, they all kind of are made up. These are just kind of frameworks people use to describe people. Like their thoughts, behaviors, motivations, and stuff. Enneagram? Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of part of what I've been talking about too. I feel like Enneagram is given less credit than it kind of should be, and like personality disorders are seen as kind of more objective than they are. But I mean, yeah, different people, like some people doubt Enneagram, some people doubt personality disorders. I think probably there is at least some truth to both of these frameworks, these concepts, but it's up to you. Also, keep in mind my descriptions might not be the best because I haven't looked into it super recently, also, and I also haven't dived into it a ton. Really, like I have somewhat dived into it, but some people have looked into it way more than me. Although, probably, like, the most of the people who I would say my Enneagram ideas may have been the ideas that probably had got me the most traction on social media at any point. But so yeah, different typology enthusiasts had liked what I had to say about it in my insights, but I mean if you don't believe in Enneagram it probably won't mean much to you, but yeah. Even within what I know about it, I feel like I'm a bit rusty on it, but I wanted to talk about it because it related to a lot of what I was talking about regarding cluster A. And I feel like too, getting people who are Enneagram 6s and really any Enneagram enthusiasts or people who have even a casual interest in Enneagram could be useful because 6s I feel like are related to cluster A. I guess particularly what the um, Enneagram would list, I guess maybe on the more unhealthy types of um, Enneagram 6, which I mean, some people would probably put me under, I don't know. I consider myself to have traits of both what's listed as healthy and unhealthy traits of them, although the cluster A arguably is more on the unhealthier side, but I don't know. I personally see positives to it as well, but I know that's not the popular opinion. Like, I see being mistrustful is probably a very good thing, but society as a whole oftentimes doesn't exactly see it that way. Although I feel like partly they do, but they are kind of also in denial about it at the same time. But also, even like protective empathy is supposed to be related to some like cluster A traits, but it's not really talked about as much or looked into as much. Yeah, so, okay. It says right now 2 people are here. Yeah, I've done lives before where I kind of just went with anything in the chat, particularly when I was trying to um, learn what it was, like when I was testing it out. But yeah, I am curious to know how I could get more people interested in what I'm talking about to hopefully come across it. I have a good idea of why some people knew about me specifically, it looks like, and yeah, they were talking about something that I am definitely not interested in talking about at the moment, but yeah. I mean, I suppose that people coming in to talk about that has not been as much of an issue as I was worried about. So, I'm glad about that. Hmm. I may end it soon. Although, yeah, because it doesn't look like that many people specifically were interested in the topic, so hopefully I'll be able to get more people interested in it. But yeah. Um if you are interested in Enneagram or more curious about it, you can talk to me about it. If you have any even if you have any like negative opinions about it too, I'd be interested to hear about that just to get more conversations going about it. And especially if you're an Enneagram 6 or know of an Enneagram 6, these are um or are interested in kind of understanding Enneagram 6s, like you have Enneagram 6s in your life. Those are people I want to get more of in the community, as well as people who are cluster A or want to understand cluster A better. I'm also interested in Gurdjieff, and I've talked a little bit about Gurdjieff in the server. If anyone is interested in Gurdjieff, I do find Gurdjieff's ideas to be very helpful as someone who is very agnostic as far as religion goes. So, when I was like very young, I think I started to have a bit of like concern about the meaning of life and a bit of like existential dread. So, when I first learned about religion, I did become very invested in it. And then, but as time went on, I became more and more skeptical of it. And now I like couldn't believe in religion even if I wanted to. But I do like a lot of the ideas of some religions. I just don't carry the belief. Like I think some of them have good messages even though I don't believe in it. And I like Gurdjieff because Gurdjieff, if anyone is very agnostic and probably atheist too, you might like the fact that Gurdjieff doesn't tell you to believe in anything specifically, but he has different philosophies that are meant to be helpful. A lot of it has to do with like really looking inward, um, and also uh, one of the things he talks about a lot is trying to really find what's called your aim, and that's kind of like your main purpose in life. And then like he talks about how to differentiate that from like different fleeting desires or goals that like may kind of pop into your head, and how to really hone in on what your main ultimate goal is in life, and like kind of discovering that and sticking to it, which I think could be a very good thing. Cuz like I think all people generally have some to some degree conflicting desires and goals. And I have talked a bit about that on the server, I sometimes, like if I'm having like a certain problem, I can go to Gemini, um, and I can say, could you put this into the framework of Gurdjieff's many eyes and aims, an aim, and it talks about some of my inner conflicts and like how it relates to that. It's pretty good. Um, yeah, so basically the many eyes is just like your conflicting desires and like goals that you might have. And then the aim is like what you ultimately want to do. So I generally can type something like that. It's pretty good. I'm not sure any opinions on Gemini, but I find it to be pretty good, especially if you're getting into something. It can really tailor information in it in a way that's very comprehensible and concise, which I like. I do like Gurdjieff, but yeah, it's hard to when you're first getting into it to kind of understand things sometimes. Also, too, it personalizes it, which I like. But it's it might have to do too with like in my like when I did was given like when I was last given like cognitive testing, the only areas I scored really above average in were related to some executive functioning like abstract reasoning, information processing, and problem solving. And then I only I scored like high average in abstract verbal reasoning, which was the subset of verbal reasoning, but overall my verbal skills were straight average. So I do wonder if like having a bent more towards like abstract reasoning and those types of stuff versus like raw vocabulary. I feel like part of that is why I gravitate towards something like Gemini because it can personalize things to my best way to understand it. But yeah, I think I might end it soon, end the video, unless anyone has anything else to add. And then yeah, too, if people watch it back, I don't want to be super long, especially if I'm not like getting too much engagement. But yeah, thanks for watching.